The Stonewall terror is finally coming to an end, so people may not know Stonewall, who are foreigners. You have your experience with Stonewall, don't you?
Yes, I got in touch with them for a media documentary I was doing in my university course a few years ago, and they just never got back to me, presumably because my wallet wasn't big enough.
Because they make tons of money from the state. They're doing much more important things like determining who can go into a bathroom. So Stonewall is, it comes from the Stonewall riots and has always lobbied itself as a gay rights organization, and then was infected with intersectionality, presumably, and has now become the LGBTQ plus organization that it is, which means that they stand for intersectionalism, not for tolerance.
No surprise, they were ripe for infection.
So this is the first story here, so people may remember, just dog memories. So Stonewall boss defends new strategy amid criticism. The new strategy here being to accuse anyone who criticizes them of being an anti-Semite, which was impressive. Also giving illegal advice to multiple organizations that they were paid to give, which, again, makes them look terrible. And also public bodies finally defunding Stonewall. You know, the DVLA, Ofcom, BBC, even at this
themselves,
point, are saying they're not going to pay them the money anymore to terrorize them. So the end of that racket.
2 point and go. Not enough gays.
Yeah, I mean, not really worth the cash.
I think that
don't think it ever was.
You could get an intern to do that.
I'll do it for free.
Yeah, there you go.
I'm walking to the BBC, not enough gays. I'll see you tomorrow.
Yes.
So if we go to the next one, we have the other news on this. So why is Stonewall such a piece of S organization? Well, you can see an example here. Scotland's civil service has agreed to delete the word mother from maternity policies after Stonewall's pressure. So, I mean, this is their job. This is what they do.
A real service to society right here.
Yes, enforcing leftist dogma into public bodies in Britain. So if we continue, if we go to the next one, we also have a film which they were involved with, which ended up being rather funny. So Parent condemns BBC's educational film describing 100 gender identities. And that in the film, she actually says, that's the 100 we know of. I'm like, right, okay.
We've got the archaeologists unearthing more as we speak.
Yes. And the BBC did that with the advice given from Stonewall as to what to say. And this was meant for kids, as you can see there, relationships, sex education. I was like, God. Absolute trash.
Don't let the state teach your kids about sex.
So everyone has pretty much noticed at this point that this is mad. Stonewall are mad, and that's why they start getting defunding. But a nice turning point, I think, has come about. So if we go to the next one, this is Noland Investigates. So this is from the BBC, and it's an investigation into Stonewall. Except it's only from the Northern Irish BBC radio sector.
Trust the Irish?
Yes. The London sector of the BBC have not cooperated with them at all, and you can go watch all of these episodes in your spare time. I haven't had a chance to watch them all, so if I missed something out, sorry. But there's enough in there, I think, that we can successfully put this down as what it is, which is essentially just a really good condemnation of Stonewall and why they're awful.
Fantastic. I was looking forward to actually giving this a listen when I had the chance.
Yeah, and I highly recommend it. But the thing there being, as they mentioned, that the BBC refused to help with any of that at all.
Yeah, of course they didn't.
Especially, they refused to send any representatives to ever give any statements about their position. This organisation that has thousands of people endlessly on TV.
And they've just cut ties with them. Why not?
They couldn't spare a single soul to go down and have a word or get on a Zoom call. No.
Nope.
They also, Noland Investigates, called up the BBC London office and said, hey, could we have all the correspondence you've had with Stonewall so we can scrutinise it, as they can do in this country with governments regularly? The BBC said no. No, you're not allowed it.
Pretty clear divide right there.
So they asked for a redacted version, all personal information redacted, whatever. Still no. No, just, we're not going to send you anything. They know they're guilty.
Yes.
And I think it's fantastic.
They are hiding something.
Yeah, the obvious point being that Stonewall is also a lobbying group and the BBC cannot be involved with that sort of thing. You will recall this is how British Voldemort ended up getting John Sweeney his job. Because remember, John Sweeney ended up leaving after colluding with an organisation called Hope Not Hate. And, well, the BBC is not allowed to do that because they're explicitly partisan. So,
well, yeah. Funded by taxpayer money, so...
Yeah, and Hope Not Hate, specifically be communist in that case. Anyway, so we go to the next one here with episode 1. I thought we'd go through some of this fantastic stuff. So I thought we'd first mention that Stonewall has a policy of never debating, ever, if they can help it. So let's play this first clip.
Police, NHS, all of these organisations have brought Stonewall in, presumably aware that Stonewall hold some controversial views. So why did they bring them in and allow them to influence their own policies? And can they then say that they are truly independent?
When my guest today, Ruth Hunt, became chief executive, she extended its work to include the trans community. But many Stonewall members have been upset at the line the leadership has taken on gender recognition, that anyone can declare themselves to be male or female, and at their refusal to share a platform with anyone who disagrees. Translation
When you consider how controversial some of these issues are, Stonewall's position of often not debating them has just meant that the potential policies that Stonewall are advocating for can't be scrutinised and can't be debated.
So that's part of the reason why they've been so successful.
Yes. Agree with our suppositions or else.
Yes, nothing is up for debate. And that's why you have clips of, say, the lady who went to the BBC to call all TERFs anti-Semites, compare them to anti-Semites. She was not on with someone else to debate this because they don't invite debate.
Yeah, as a tactic, it is sadly very effective.
But it's also very telling.
Yeah.
They know their ideas can't stand up and debate.
Yes, of course.
So if we go to the next one here. Stonewall also decided to talk to the BBC about setting up a allies scheme. So for non-LGBTQ plus people, the demis.
Yep.
They're the ones who are going to be the allies. And the way they were going to do this is put badges on them, and then they could speak for the LGBs, Qs and Is, or whatever else.
I thought the whole thing was that if you're not actively involved in the community, was that you can't speak for them and you shouldn't speak for them, you horrible bigot.
No, you can use your privilege to speak for them.
Yes, of course. Because they don't have to spend time educating us.
Right. So let's play the second clip from episode 2.
You have to look at the relationship between the BBC and Stonewall in this and how this started. Because the reason we're doing this podcast was because I saw something on the BBC staff website which made me think, well, where's that coming from? So there was a statement on their page which said, it was about the BBC Ally Scheme. You know about the Ally Scheme. And this one line struck me. Interventions made by non-LGBTQ plus people as they are not done out of self-interest can have a greater impact than if raised by LGBTQ plus staff themselves.
So here we have the BBC issuing a UK-wide initiative across the organisation. And is it a coincidence that it was taken from a Stonewall policy document?
Hello everyone, I'm James Pennell. I am the sponsor of the LGBTQ plus workstream. We spoke to lots of you, and one of the suggestions that came back was to have an allies program. We worked with Stonewall on the review and they emphasised that as well.
What critical thinking was there within the BBC before it recommended straight staff would wear badges indicating that they were available to speak on behalf of LGBT people because, quote, they can have a greater impact? Can you imagine if you were saying to a woman, we're going to get a man to speak on your behalf because they might be listened to more?
Yeah, exactly what they said, right, was interventions made by non-LGBTQ plus people, because that's the BBC's new term that they use, as they are not done out of self-interest, can have a greater impact than if raised by LGBTQ plus staff themselves.
And I love it. Like, you're literally going to get a little, rainbow sheriff's badge.
Yep.
Which, I speak for the gay.
That's literally the meme of the black woman going, I'm not oppressed, and them going, yes, you are. Let me speak on your behalf.
Yes.
Jesus Christ.
That was an actual policy Stonewall came up with, and then the BBC defaulted to.
The BBC doesn't even seem to have had any sort of scrutiny to this at all. Stonewall just say it, we do it.
Yeah, there was some clips later on that I haven't had time to include, but it was essentially just they interviewed a bunch of people, and they were all like, what? Are you mad? Like, why would I need some guy to speak for me because, he's got the gay badge?
It's so patronizing.
Yeah, there was no critical thinking whatsoever in that decision. There's also the point that the term LGBTQ plus is not a term that is generally used throughout public organizations. It is advised by Stonewall to be used, though.
Of course.
So therefore, the BBC using that term is a direct lineage.
Yes, there was also the framing of that where they were saying that non-LGBTQ plus. So it's like, so are we just framing LGBTQ plus as the norm?
The alphabet.
Yes, the alphabet soup. Are they just the norm? Are they the standard at the BBC?
That's the standard.
You can't just say,
citizen.
Straight people.
Yeah.
Normal people.
Yeah, no, they use that term. But it's a direct lineage from a lobbying group who uses that term and no one else to the BBC's editorial output and advice within its own staff, which is a big no-no because they are still governed by the Royal Charter and all the rest of it.
Yep.
Anyway, so if we skip forward to episode 10, as you can see here, this is where things got a bit spicy.
Ooh.
And I enjoyed. So if we go to the next clip, there was a debate about pronouns in here between Noland, the Northern Irish BBC chap who's looking into Stonewall, and the Pink News CEO turned up to debate after he ran away from his last
Carl's
debate.
favourite.
Yeah, and the Pink News guy says some pretty shocking stuff, so let's play
I
this
have a
clip.
feeling there's a script that you could probably get everything they're about to say off of.
I wouldn't expect him to say that he was going to break the law, but
Oh, okay.
he did. So
Ooh.
let's go.
BBC told staff that they were keen to move up the Workplace Equality Index, and they set that as a goal. And they listed some examples of things that they have done which have improved LGBTQ equality as part of that. And one of those things was the use of promoting gender pronouns for staff, which obviously is controversial with some people.
Why is it controversial? But anyway, I'll let you carry on with your question.
Well, you know the debate as well as I do, Benjamin, but
help me here between the two of you. Why is it controversial, David?
David can explain why it's controversial, and I can tell you why I don't think it is, which is fine.
Well, looking at this, there are two sides to this debate, aren't there? It's about sex versus gender, essentially, and gender identity. So a lot of people who argue sex is more important than your gender identity will argue that if you start to bring in pronouns into organisations, you're essentially taking a political position on the side of gender identity. Well, that's what those people argue.
So I'll give you my perspective as an employer. So we do have a pronouns policy on our email signatures and on Slack, which we use for internal messaging. Our pronouns are declared. And when we do a meeting with someone external, or when there's a candidate coming to be interviewed for a job, I'd say, hi, my name's Benjamin, my pronouns are he, him.
But Benjamin, as an employer, if you had a member of staff who held gender critical views and they didn't want to take part in that and they didn't want to put their pronouns on those emails, should that be compulsory? Would you make an employee do that?
I would say that it's unlikely that someone with gender critical views would either apply for or be successful in being employed at...
Well, you couldn't discriminate on someone based on gender critical views.
I can't discriminate against them based on, well, the recent thing would say that it's a protected characteristic as a belief, right? I think it would be incredibly unlikely that someone who holds views that are contrary to the stated mission and values of Pink News would wish to work at Pink News.
I love that.
Yep.
So you've got this stupid pronouns debate, which I don't really care about because the answer is obvious. But the amazing point there being that where he lays out that, well, if someone applied to Pink News with gender critical beliefs, they would be unlikely to apply, but also unlikely to succeed.
So they come into the office. No, you don't want to apply here.
Yeah.
You don't want to come near us.
You might think that's not a big deal, but gender critical beliefs, as he mentioned subsequently, are a protected characteristic in law in Britain.
I mean, it's so obvious that, like you say, he's just backpedaling. It would be nice if he just came out and just said, I can and I will.
Yeah, I won't hire people who disagree with me on this.
Yeah.
Because we have in British law that you are protected on your race, class, blah, 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 on employment, also belief. And gender critical beliefs are now protected under those. So the fact that he said that so it wouldn't be successful, it is actually the legal equivalent of him saying, yeah, well, at Pink News, we don't hire black people. And if they did apply, we wouldn't promote them or accept them. And it's like,
yep. Well, we wouldn't get them applying here, would we?
Yeah, but even if they did, they wouldn't be successful. It's like, okay, Benjamin.
Yeah, all right.
That's how the law is written. Both of those things are equally protected under the Equality Act. So
yeah,
big admission from Pink News there. That
I'm sure they would like it if the Equality Act only went one very specific direction.
Yes, we want our police protected, no one else's.
Exactly.
Big shook. Anyway, there's also the last exchange from him, which I've had to include because it's really funny, which is the CEO of Pink News, Mr. Benjamin, saying that he can't really fathom a world in which we don't exchange pronouns when we meet. We don't turn up and be like, hello.
He can't think 15 years back. Well, no, 3 years back.
Can't imagine it. Let's go to the next one.
But let's take this outside of Pink News and let's look at, government institutions. Should an employee be compelled to write that it's he, she, they, them?
Honest answer is, I think there's a very specific thing at an organisation like Pink News, but I think that at a public sector body, of which the BBC is one, I think that it should be probably described as good practice.
Why?
Stephen, would you not want to know whether someone you're working with, whether you might be inadvertently offending or upsetting someone that you're working with?
But if you're in a working environment and you have a good relationship with your colleagues and there's a good working environment...
Well, how would me and you have a good... can I ask you, what's your preferred pronoun, David?
Yeah, I love it. It just breaks down. He's like, just tell me your pronoun.
I want them now.
How do we live side by side if we don't know each other's pronouns? Nolan.
Yep.
Okay. You can see the difference there between the normal human beings and the people who are London-centric mad.
It's amazing how insulated in their beliefs are they, that all it takes is but why though? And they're like, oh God, no, Jesus.
That's sweating.
I wasn't expecting this one.
Yeah, anyway, so we're going to move on from that, which is also there is a direct line between Stonewall's guidance and BBC editorial. As mentioned previously, there's some of this. But also in the internals, the fact that they ask for what gender you were assigned at birth. Because remember, you were assigned your gender at birth.
It's not a description of reality. It's the doctor putting you down on a list somewhere.
Yes. Anyway, let's play the next clip.
Sam Smith, a former BBC journalist, says she felt that the language used by Stonewall was filtering through to editorial output.
The style guide advised journalists that they should refer to people as the sex of their choice. Okay, so if a man says he's a woman, you refer to that person as a woman. In all circumstances, there don't seem to be any exceptions to that.
So that's essentially self-identification.
Yeah, it's self-ID. Okay, so if you apply for a job in the BBC and you start to fill out the recruitment form, the form asks you whether your sex or your gender is the same as the gender or sex, I can't remember which, that you were assigned at birth, okay? Now, believe me, when you have a baby, no one phones you up and asks you, congratulations, what sex was it assigned at birth? Okay, this is not normal language. This is not common parlance. This is political language. This is campaigning language. And it's the campaigning language which is used by organisations who are on one particular side of that political campaign, the most prominent of which is Stonewall. And when I queried this, because I did start to query some of this stuff, I was told that the BBC kind of checked this with Stonewall, and Stonewall were fine. They were fine with it, and therefore the BBC was fine with it.
How has the BBC got itself into a position where rather than making decisions for itself, it is taking what Stonewall tell it? I thought all these managers in this organisation were in this organisation to take decisions on behalf of licence fee payers, not to defer them to a lobby group outside of the BBC who have one particular agenda, their agenda.
I love it. I mean, something we've known for a long time, as you can just see it evident in the BBC's output, but it's finally being showcased, and in a way where the BBC can't ignore it, because this is actually against their own charter. They can't just work with some lobbying group to decide issues that are not settled.
And the way they were deferring decisions to it as well. Are we sure about this Stonewall decision? I know. Let's ask Stonewall what they think.
Maybe they'll have the answer.
Yes.
Yeah. There's also continued, so we go to the next one. We have the term cis also being used. Let's play the next one.
Cis is a word used by, again, one side of this particular political campaign to make women sort of a subset, biological women, a subset of woman as an identity, okay? And people on the other side of this argument really object to that. They find that word cis incredibly offensive.
Does the BBC now use the term cis?
I've seen it in our editorial. Yeah, I've seen it on our website.
Are we using it because Stonewall have told us to?
Well, maybe we could find out if the BBC would answer our freedom of information. I mean, this is presumably what we're going to get with this stuff, is exactly what the advice was from Stonewall. Were they saying, in editorial output, you should no longer use these terms and you should use these terms? And there has been a shift in BBC language. For example, if you see in BBC Copy now, it says LGBTQ+, which is something that is quite new. That's now, whether they asked for it or whether it's bled through, but that's now being used in editorial output by the BBC.
So again, more terms being used directly from Stonewall. And the last one here I want to play was just an amazing thing, which is the BBC have now redefined what homosexual means. So for all time, it's been people who are same-sex attracted.
Yep.
So we're of the same sex. If we were attracted to each other, we'd be gay. And
throwing that one out
That
there.
would be one definition, but that's not the BBC's definition. Nah, they're gonna tell you who is gay. And it's on gender lines. Let's play the last one.
Our understanding is that when the BBC style guide was being updated, diversity and inclusion had an input.
Diversity and inclusion?
Yes. So diversity and inclusion, which are supposed to be, the whole message has always been, it's an internal matter, it's about HR, all of this, but diversity and inclusion had an input into the BBC style guide, the language we use.
But the language, look, I've been in this organisation a long time, and you're telling me
diversity and inclusion have had a major input into this. So
into how we speak,
into the language we use, and it's particularly on this issue of around sex and gender and sexuality and all of these different terms. So there's a piece in The Spectator and it's entitled The BBC's Woke Guide to Gender, and they're very critical of some of the way the BBC defines some of these terms. And the key one is around the definition of homosexual.
So the BBC has in its official paperwork how it defines homosexual?
Yes, so we've got that. So we've got the new style guide. There's been a lot of fuss over this, and it's been mentioned for a long time. It's now come out, and the BBC say homosexual means people of either sex who are attracted to people of their own gender, but take care how you use it. Now, people may think...
Their own gender?
Yeah. Most people who listen to that mightn't notice that, but that's very significant in this whole debate. Attracted to people of their own gender, because a lot of gay people will say it's not about gender at all, it's about sex. They're same-sex attracted.
So the BBC defining homosexuality as attracted to your own gender, not sex. Therefore, they are literally taking the position of suck the dick bigger.
Absolutely. You gay, bro.
Yeah.
Yep.
Like, if a lesbian doesn't want to have sex with a trans woman who has a penis, she's a bigot.
She's a bigot, and she's not gay.
Yes, she's not really gay. Yeah.
Yeah, it's
homosexual, John says, not homogenderal.
Yep,
yeah,
true. It does remind me of those TikToks you see of teenagers going, let me explain why I'm a lesbian who goes out with a guy.
Yes.
Yes.
That is literally
it's how you end up at that position.
And it's mad. And I just wanted to go through some of this as well, some of the stuff in the culture. So if we get this up, this is some thing that's taking place in Portsmouth Council. If we get the first image, you can see just the array of random gender flags. And if we keep going, you've got the graffiti from the supporters of Stonewall's worldview. F-TERFs. We get the next one. We have transphobes can suck my pink strap. Right. And if we go to the last one here, we have the signs they were holding. Suck my dick, you transphobic C-word. Yes. Rightio.
Keeping it classy.
Again, just the tolerance is unbelievable. I also love how this comes off, if we can get the next link up, as this. I mean, literally, that's all it reminds me of.
It does a little bit. If you're putting people in a position where, due to gender ideology, they are having to get with people who have the genitals that they're not attracted to, what are you saying?
Yeah, you literally have to do it, or else.
Yep.
Or else
face the woke mob.
Yeah. Anyway, so let's move on from this. There's another thing that this obviously ties into, which is BBC Question Time. So this was a clip in which Professor Robert Winston, who's a professor of biology specifically around fertility and reproduction and stuff. And I've actually seen him live when I was a kid, and he's a great guy. And he knows his stuff because he's a scientist, not an ideologue. And if we can play this clip, he just decides to point out that you can't change your sex. And in response, Fiona Bruce, the host here, tries to slap him down and be like, no, people disagree.
Damage control immediately.
Yeah, so let's play this clip.
Academic freedom has been talked about in a number of areas in recent years.
I was rather hoping that you'd be interested in my opinion as a biologist, which seems rather more important, because I've got to say...
Well, I'm just saying only because the issue of academic freedom isn't solely
I'm about to say something which will mean that you'll probably want to edit the programme when I finish, but basically...
Right. OK, we're all braced for it.
I will say this categorically, that you cannot change your sex. Your sex actually is there in every single cell in the body. You have a chromosomal sex, you have genetic sex, you have hormonal sex, you have all sorts of different kinds of psychological, brain sex, they're all different. And we are very confused about this, unfortunately, and regrettably, it's got into this argument that people will now accuse me of being transphobic.
Well, obviously, there are trans people who say you absolutely can do that.
Overall, I think it's a very sad thing that we can't discuss biological science without actually getting completely caught up emotionally with something which is really completely wrong.
Well, as I say, there are people who would vehemently disagree with you, so I'm just going to make that clear.
Yes, and those people are wrong.
Yes, the idea that somebody who at most has read a Judith Butler book can disagree with a biologist on something like that.
I must say, he's such a charismatic guy, and he's done his work, he's dedicated his life to the subject of fertility and sex and all the rest of it. And then he's there like, yes, so here's all my research, my knowledge, all the rest of it. And she's like, yes, but some people disagree.
And
like,
despite...
What?
He was putting it forward in a very casual, very sort of like friendly way, just like, let me just explain to you very calmly.
Like, this is the science, and if you disagree, you're a science denier.
Yes, and you can be sure if he said that to anybody outside of this kind of environment, he would be met with screeches.
Yeah, but I also love the fact that he's like, well, we're very confused on this. Well, who's doing the confusing?
Yes.
We weren't confused on this 10, 15 years ago, were you? Anyway, so if we move on from this, you have this tweet in which summarized it perfectly. The reason Fiona Bruce has to say some people disagree to Professor Winston is not because of scientific discovery, but because of Stonewall training. Absolutely correct, as we demonstrated with that podcast before. That is why she's saying that, because, well, the internals make her say such a thing. Also, if we carry on from this, I also wanted to make the comparison that some people have made to stuff like this. China will require more than 200,000 accredited journalists to take at least 90 hours of continued education a year to ensure they are politically firm or professionally excellent. Yeah, that's never going to happen in the West, would it? Yeah. But you might wonder, why the hell am I wasting all your time with this? You know, some podcast shows that definitively what we've all known forever is that the BBC is infected with leftist intersectionality, and it goes through all their editorial and work processes. Yeah, okay, fair. Except that it's having a huge impact, and that's why I spent my time on this, because the hoes are mad and unbelievably mad. So all of the checkmarks, all of the leftists are essentially treating this as the collapse, the utter destruction of their worldview in public bodies.
Good.
And yeah, okay, good. I'm all
Drop the red pills.
Finally. So let's go to the next one here. We have some people screeching. So you have Stop Funding Hate, of course, with their checkmark. An open letter detailing the growing concern about the BBC's behaviour towards trans people. And it's signed by former BBC staff, of course. So the concern being that BBC Northern Ireland hasn't been infected with this, apparently, and isn't fallen for it. If we carry on, there's more checkmarks who are uber mad. Angela Rayner, uber mad. As I said 2 weeks ago in my speech to LGBT Labour, there is what appears to be a campaign in some parts of the media. The coverage of trans rights and trans issues is terrible. So I stand with Stonewall and what you said about the treatment of these issues in the media, referring to Stonewall's influence being released from that podcast that then was reported on by BBC News. Again, then we carry on. There's more of these. So if we go to the next one, we have some other guy. I think he's LGBT Labour chairman or secretary or something. Of course, very scared by the fact that they're being exposed. And we keep going. You have
I find this campaign for reality quite scary.
Yes.
Jesus.
The campaign for reality is the problem. If we carry on, we have Islamo-leftism, who is also very mad. Relentless attempts to vilify Stonewall. Yeah, because they provided illegal and just wrong information consistently at the taxpayer's expense. No, not a concern. No. Simply because they stand up for trans rights, get lost. That the BBC are using public money to amplify such a hateful campaign, reminiscent of homophobic moral panics beggars belief. Right. But if they use public money to advocate scientific wrongs and nonsense and unlawful guidance, A-okay. But to point out that this was unlawful, improper, and just scientifically wrong, that's the problem. Always a problem. We also carry on. We have Owen Jones, who is very mad. He did a stream about this in which he was mad for about an hour 33.
Isn't he always about everything?
But, you know, what's he done? We got the next one here. We
Women
have more.
Speaking for themselves. Owen Jones mad.
I can't remember what order I put these in. So just if we go to the next one, there's another guy who's very mad. He's mad that the LGBT Alliance is talking sense, and Stonewall is looking more and more insane. And then the last one here, if we get the last one up, so the last link, we just have him being mad, of course, because Pink News are reporting anti-LGBT plus hate crimes are up in Britain. And he's like, if you think this is unlinked to the constant attacks on the trans community from the UK media and other recent attacks on Stonewall by the establishment and the BBC, you haven't been paying attention. Right. Because people are watching that, realising Stonewall's full of S, and therefore going out attacking gay people. Not happening.
Nah.
Just pulled out of your ass.
And depending on how they're defining hate crime as well.
Yes, there's also that problem. But anyway, I know that took a little while, and the reason I went through all of that, and you might think it's a little bit just like, oh, come on, we knew. Well, it's having a tremendous impact. They are getting defunded left, right, and centre, and also being exposed for what they are.
I mean, hey, people wanted good news, right?
Yeah, there's your good news.
Here's some good news for you.
Far left being exposed on a national level within Britain. Yeah.
Based.
I'm going to take the win.
Based Ireland.
If you enjoyed that segment from the podcast The Lotus Eaters, you can watch the full thing at 1 p.m. every weekday at lotuseaters.com, or you can sign up to get access to all the premium content we have on the site.
Yeah, we've got loads of really good stuff. Every week we have a Contemplations and Epochs episode that goes up, and in the Contemplations we talk about just interesting things, and the Epochs episodes are probably my favourite because I love talking about history. This latest one is we're doing a bit of a series on the 100 Years' War and why England kept winning. And we've not finished it yet, and you're going to really enjoy the end of that one. But we've also got other excellent episodes that we do, like the book club. The most recent one was Shooting an Elephant by George Orwell. This was about his time in Burma as a colonial officer. and when he was tasked with the shooting of a rampaging elephant. And it's really, really interesting what the circumstance of the thing was. But we also have lots of other content, such as premium articles, which have audio tracks on them for our silver and gold subscribers. And we do premium podcasts about things that we don't really feel that we can put on YouTube or have done a particularly large amount of research into. And so it's worth keeping them slightly more private. And we also do lots of very interesting interviews, such as this one with comedian Steve Hughes, which was really fascinating because I didn't expect him to be a philosopher. But anyway.
Yeah. Also, the last thing to mention is the live event content we have. So we occasionally, when we get around to it, doing our live events, and the videos from them are on the website as premium, of course, because people came to see and paid. So go and check that out. This is on the worst of critical race theory.
Yes.
And I do mean the worst.
It's unconscionable.
Yeah. So if you'd like access to all that premium content, go to lotusleaders.com and subscribe. Thank you and goodbye.